start working with startups. This has been something that's been going a very long time. North Bank Innovation has been moving forward, and really over the past 2 years, the momentum that's been happening with you has really kind of said, no, we really need this to happen. We need this to be a physical space. We need this to be a space where we can congregate, and the Vic and New Blueprint's been making that happen. So special thanks to them. If you don't know me, I'm Dave. Hi, I'm Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Hey, Dave.
It is something that I've been doing for really 10 years, kind of pre-COVID. Started doing this as a side hustle. My regular career was originally design, brand, and advertising. I was working on national campaigns, things for the Olympics and U.S. women's soccer team with Nike and Adidas and a bunch of other things, and just loved the passion of startup. I had started a couple of companies on the side, and what I found out in 2014 was there was a group of people that worked behind the scenes to do this, that worked in ways to support that I didn't really know. I had always been trying to build a startup and struggling with all those challenges, and I never really knew that there were some really smart, talented, connected people that worked behind the scenes, and I fell in love with that. It was just amazing to see people that wanted to inspire other founders, and so I jumped in, and that was the birth of North Bank. And like I said, it died a little bit during COVID, like a lot did. I really focus on in person. I don't like to do virtual, so all of the events, we don't do any virtual events. Everything we do is either going to be here or another physical space. Because I think there's something happens when you stand toe-to-toe with somebody that's completely different. And I think that's part of where the magic happens. So, I skipped ahead. That was what I was going to say when this was up. I said today stuck up on me. Nothing else we need to know other than kind of the timing that this speaks to, which is this region. For the next 10 years, this is going to be one of the hottest areas in the country. I don't know if you know that. You don't hear it, maybe. We see the waterfront, and we kind of go, oh, this is really cool. Well, stuff that's been happening for a really long time has been that wealthy and educated people have been moving over here out of Portland because of the tax structures and situations, and people have been loving the lifestyle, living the best of both worlds. And that's really accelerating. And what's happening now is that the city and the region is kind of catching on, right? And so there's a lot of momentum at the city to start to lean into that. The VIC is one of them. It's being enabled partially by the city and the structures that they're doing. But there's other development projects that are going on, and we're actually changing as part of the process to build a strategic plan for the city. And it focuses on economic development, innovation, and entrepreneurship are some of their key pillars. So there's some really strategic things that they're doing that are going to start to transform this area. So, stay tuned. Part of the reason that we did it is I find very often founders want to do one certain thing. They get an idea. And I say it, I'm just guilty. The song stuck in my head. The song stuck in my head is an indicator here. We catalyze the community. But a founder does the same thing. And what we also don't realize is that it is a journey, it is a process. We talk about a pivot, we hear these things, but we don't realize that the process of an idea becoming something successful takes a ton of influence and changes and moves and everything else. And that just takes having people around to do it. So it's kind of the magic of an incubator. I don't love the incubator name, but it helps people understand this is where startups come. And we help you get from point A to point B and be successful. Yes, I've been doing it a long time, but in September, we officially launched this place, which is North Bank at the Vic, and we have 2 separate areas. And to celebrate that, we had an amazing launch party. I told the team, I said, look, I want 150 people. And they go, okay, Dave, sure. And we ended up getting, we checked the register, I think it was 230 had checked in. Marlo, Maroon was graciously helping us out. And like, my God, I've never seen anybody chew through stuff. As many people as were coming through, there was a line out the door. It was amazing. So, yeah. If you weren't there, catch up. There are pictures, and it's just an exciting event. Had local founders come in and talk. We had city councilwoman came up, Diana Perez came and talked. The owners of the Vic came and talked about that it really fits their vision. So there's a lot of things really lining up, which I think is just amazing. So it isn't just this. It is not just this in these events. But that's me, that's us, that's what's been going on. We do it because of what you guys are doing. So I would love to find out what you guys are working on. Anybody that wants to stand up, talk about your project, startup that you're jumping into, whatever it is, I would love to find out. Crickets. Wait, okay. Yes.
So my name is Shay, and I've been doing HR for 15 years, but I've just recently fully launched trauma-informed HR. And what I do is help you build a sustainable workforce versus like high turnover and all the things that can happen when you're learning to be a business owner or a manager. How you can help me is just connecting with me and let me practice my pitch. And then also, if you know anyone that's into the HR services, I appreciate your referrals.
Awesome. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Eric. I've been working on an AI diligence tool for the private equity space. And yesterday I launched my first, brought my first customers on with a closed beta. So that's my big milestone.
Eric is also one of the reasons that I'm here. He started a group. He was the CEO of another company that was here that was making a gaming platform. He was running a Van Tech group. And I was starting to work a lot in just kind of moving out in Portland and everything else. And I was living up here, and somebody said, you know, there's actually a scene up here. There's a thing called Van Tech. So I walk in. My first meeting, I think you were 5 minutes into the presentation, you says, you know, who would want to build an incubator up here? And I'm in the back of the room, oh. So, it's his fault. Anybody else?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin, and I recently moved to Vancouver. Had a career working actually with 85,000 companies and 3 global publicly traded companies in product, marketing, and general management roles. And I just wanted to get plugged into what's happening with the startup community in Vancouver, people who are growing startups and emerging companies. The work I'm starting to do now is advisory work, consulting, business coaching, executive leadership coaching. I just finished the UC Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute, where I also did an MBA. And would love to just get connected with people, get to know you, so if you have a chance, say hello after the conversation. Thanks. Awesome. Oh, and board roles. I'm also really interested in board roles. Nonprofit, and then also a couple startups.
Cool.
Hello everyone, I'm Oliver. I'm actually with a company called Qtex AI out of Boise, Idaho. So I'm just visiting today, but I am here in Vancouver, or the Northwestern area, trying to connect with companies to help anyone building hardware to build that faster and better use your money, so that we do the back end work of helping you build it, but we want to help companies that are actually making a difference be able to scale rapidly, as hardware is, we recognize it's such a difficult environment to work in. So we just want to help companies here grow faster. So if you're doing engineering hardware, I'd love to just connect and see what the ecosystem's like here.
We should definitely catch up.
Sounds good.
One of the things that we're finding, certainly inside of the Vic, right? With the co-working layer, with the incubator services that we have as well, there's obviously people that are coming in. As soon as they start to move into production, there's places to have them land here. Mm-hmm. So it's part of the conversation we have with the Vic all the time. So yeah, I'd love to catch up. I think this thing has a laser if I really need it.
I'm Daniel Roy. I work with NVIDIA in the startups program called Inception. And so I'm here to just recommend that if you are building a stack using AI, or you are doing data science or anything that needs heavy compute, join the Inception program, get some discounts, get some promos, and be part of the community.
Cool. Yeah.
Hey all, I'm Brady Barrera. I'm with KBF Advisory, and we are a full services financial advisory firm, corporate tax, accounting, audit services, financial advisory, specifically for tech startups, life science startups. So I'm here just like a lot of you all to network and meet people. I'm up from Portland, but spend a lot of time in Washington as well. So we're here as a resource and just looking to meet people.
Spend a lot of time in Bend too.
Yes. Spent time there with Dave last week.
I have a question. Who's heard of Bend Venture Conference? Okay, probably half, a little more than half group. It's really interesting because it's a resort town, right? And so it's a place to leave every day, go down. So we talked about, everybody that you know in Portland that you never get a chance to see. You always get a chance to see them hang out when you go down. So same thing happens with Flywheel, by the way. Seattle is the exact same thing. Is all of the people that are navigating in the Seattle ecosystem can never get together because they're too busy. They go down to Flywheel and they're like, oh, so cool, I can see it again forever. So. Yeah.
My name is Daniel. I am, you guys can't tell, I'm young, and I am I'm a business owner nor a startup, founder, but I am a student at WCB studying electrical engineering, and I am interested in the energy industry. Growing up here in the Pacific Northwest, I live in Vancouver, right next to Vancouver Mall, and I'm currently attending WCB, and I met Dave and a couple other people here at the initial event, and I love talking to people. I love being part of these things. I just love finding out like what's going on, where in the Vancouver area, this greater Portland area, and what I can be part of in the future. So if you know anyone that works in the energy industry, or is maybe has a startup that has anything to do with that, I'd love to talk to you, or if you could connect me with someone, I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you. Thanks for saying something too, because I think it is a big thing, right? We talk a lot about this being for founders, but it's the founder curious too, right? It's the entrepreneurial and the entrepreneurs, right? These are the people that want to be associated, and maybe they're not ready with their own idea to jump in, but the cross collaborations and collisions that you find at these events are just amazing. That's why I love doing it. So, cool. Anybody else before I move? Yes. Oh, damn. You got it. Go.
Hi, I'm Melissa Von Borstel, and I'm actually here looking at how you can help me. I'm invested in NVIDIA, I'm invested in quantum computing, and I'm invested in the future because I'm very strategic in future placing. My background is an architect, and I've also served as a director of environmental social governance, sustainability, and resiliency, so I also understand it from your reporting side. I also am an heir to a trucking company, and that's probably why I am trying to clean my karma. And in that, looking at how I just saw on Bloomberg on Sunday that by 2030, we see trucking logistics being completely automated. Well, as someone who has over 500 trailers and over 250 semi-trucks on the road right now, looking at that in terms of how do we really begin to streamline our logistics, transportation, and our brokerage departments into that idea of fully automated. The trucking company is here in Vancouver, Washington. It's been doing it since disco. And some things I don't see changing, like when you put those chains on to get to Bend, to get your Deschutes brewery.
Yep.
Those gotta go on by a human, correct? I mean, so there are passes that I do see this being a glitch, but I also have, the gentleman at Volvo telling me, oh no, we're gonna have it all the way like streamlined, where we're gonna be stacking 7 trucks down the road and being able to have this be fully automated. This is not a new conversation for me, but I am understanding it from the perspective that this is something that has been handed to me, where I don't want private equity to come in and take something that, has been built by my father and his friends. So looking at how we can begin to really understand this, because I know that everything that you have in this room has been brought to you by a truck. And I understand it from the perspective that the carbon associated with that and the counting that we're doing such a wonderful job at doing, but where are we really losing it along the way? And in transport, where you're usually getting 8 miles per gallon, 300 gallons diesel on each one of those semi-trucks. So again, being able to think of this in terms of true sustainability, true future building, and where is that heading? So I'm just gonna plant those seeds, and hopefully one of you can solve that problem for me.
Yeah, and even digital transformation on the district side and something like that, something I've been involved with as well. So
I was thinking Bitcoin mining on the semi trucks.
there you go. There you go. Yeah.
How do I follow this? Okay, well, I'm Veronica. Good morning, everyone. So my business helps mission-driven nonprofits and startups build operations. So we step in as fractional COOs to power the world-changing work they're here to make. And as a new transplant into Vancouver from the Hillsborough, Portland area, I would just love to meet people. So if you'd like to connect or know of somebody that you're like, oh, you got to meet this person, Veronica, I would love that. So thank you. That's my ask.
I see.
Hi, I'm Josh Russell. I'm an emergency physician and I'm a chief medical officer for a medical AI company. I'm here, well, first of all, I've been in Vancouver for 15 years, and thank God. I wish I'd found you earlier, but I found you. And with two co-founders, recently started a company called Experitas that's in the medical legal space. And we are doing services really right now in an effort to collect patient data to train our AI, because that's pretty inaccessible to the frontier LLMs. And currently we are looking for software developers, either in a contracting role or a fractional role, and also we need office space because we're currently based in Portland and we need to get out of Oregon.
Going the right place.
So I live here, yes, my co-founders are in Portland, so. Anyway, so I'm definitely going to speak to the management office on the way out the door.
No, talk to us. Actually, we just got a great, so never mind. Somebody else.
Maybe that's
That was the next slide. You missed that.
That would be great. Thanks.
Yes, and actually, we should talk to Eric as well. He's applying it in private equity, his solution in private equity, but there could be really interesting medical solutions. It's all about that private corpus and direct access. So, look for that. Awesome. That was really cool, guys. Thank you. Normally, I have to tag people that I know, and that was just amazing. So, thank you. We do 4 regular events. Actually, there's a 5th we're adding in for a month. If you go up to Luma /NorthBankUno, we're publishing all of them there, and it's really good. We're switching a little bit off of Meetup. Who here found it off on Meetup? Okay. If you can do me a favor, jump over there and register to Luma, because is that Charles?
Yeah.
Charles has been a passport member. So. It does a lot better job of notifying and us allowing to give updates and things like that. So we're going to be transitioning out of Meetup. But anyway, the majority of them are really solid networking. We're introducing other programming. Yes?
Are you really doing a happy hour on Thanksgiving?
Oops.
I'm in.
It's a thankful hour.
I'll tell you what I did when I realized I put that up. That's also my birthday. So if I show up, then everybody else does. We may not do that one. Sorry. I was catching up this morning. I typed it. I'm like, oh, that's my birthday. No, fine. I do that all the time. So no, probably not that one. Thank you. There we go. Yes, one of the other components of what we've been doing. Wow.
Dave, you also have a happy hour this week on Thursday?
On Thursday, yes, the Van Techie.
So the next one of those Brick House happy hours is this Thursday, correct?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, I did put that next month. Yes, I'm sorry, so it is. I tried to engineer this before, so it's the first Tuesday is the first coffee. The second Friday is the other coffee. This is the third Tuesday, and that's the fourth Thursday is the happy hour. So I asked AI to figure that out for me, so that there would be the least collisions. And it didn't warn me because I didn't pay attention to it today.
And holidays.
And holidays. I should have added that.
Like your birthday, it's a holiday.
Like my birthday. It is.
National holiday this. Well, you just said.
So if you are interested in co-working, one of the things that we've got two different spaces. There's one which is in our space, and anybody that wants to see that afterwards, I can show that. That's for $300 a month, and that's where we add additional services. So you can talk to advisory, you can get discounts, building discounts on software services and things like that. So that's kind of the people that are in the hunt, right? People that are really kind of aggressively trying to build something as well. Yeah. And the other thing we'll do is out in this space is for $125 a month. That's a negotiated rate that's different than what the BIC offers. There you go. Long story about.
I think we need to get going.
I'm not going to go any further, other than the fact we have one more event that's coming up on November 20th. We're putting together. This is an early stage workshop for people to find out more about getting started. Right? This is about the journey, the founder journey. So this is also up on that Blue Month event. This is what we'll be going over. Ha! Psych. Always stick with a book recommendation. I've gone through this. This is a phenomenal book. You really want to get into it. The guy's written, been advisor and coach through 500 startups and Y Combinator. Gives great architecture and perspective. Guess what? Speakers. Sorry. I'm not going to say a lot more other than, like I said, I met Siera up at Flywheel. It was amazing to listen to her perspective on the new technology. Barclo was still very, very new then. And so I'm excited for updates. And I've talked to Jonny about the stuff that they're doing and kind of amazingly putting together. So they're very active up in the scene in Seattle. I'm just really happy to have them here. So thank you guys. Welcome.
Thanks. Switch over. Okay. Give him a second.
I think for blocking, you have to be there. Nope, too far. There you go.
So, boom.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Check it. Forward and back. Okay.
Boom.
We're good.
Awesome. Well, let's get one more round of applause for Dave and everyone involved. I'm impressed the amount of events that Velocity is not an easy feat. So kudos to you for putting that on. I guess before we hop into it, just thanks for all the volunteers that popped up. Maybe just a quick survey. We'll just say, raise your hand if you've ever founded a company. Awesome. And then let's see what else we've got. Well, I was curious because I didn't know who was going to be here. Anyone ever invest in companies, maybe one way or the other? Okay, cool. I'm trying to think of a couple things to get into later, but.
Well, yeah, I have a question
Go ahead.
On the crowd work side. How many have heard this thing called Quantum 2025? Anybody heard of quantum2025.org?
We stumped them.
Well, the good news is that you are accidentally in the Quantum Curio today. And in being part of our Quantum Curio here in the Pacific Northwest in Barclo's inaugural year, you are participating in a series that put this whole region on the map around the world. Quantum2025.org is the International Year of Quantum, backed by the UN, 100 years of science, technology, and celebration. And that's the place where we always tell people, don't take Barclo's word for it, especially because we didn't even put a Q on our name like everybody else.
That's true.
But also don't take our word for it, because there are pages and pages of events all around the world that tell you just how far along this future compute thing is. And not because we saw some pitch decks or thought this would be a cool thing to tell people to do, but because we as humanity are actually having new ways of understanding what I call the fabric and forces of reality itself. And how can you take that science, move into engineering, and then actually move into like products, tools, et cetera, the same way that you'll see how we move people through that life cycle with research, roadmap, and revenue. So that's a primer for you guys to check out Quantum 2025, and we'll get into this.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we touch on things. We'll send some links and resources to Dave to distribute to those that are here, and we'll do some follow-up. So another way that we're looking at that, understanding it, living it, is understand, okay, let's look at how we hear everyone, we've been this, builders, operators. Current ventures like to chase the sprint, we say. It's, yeah, when's the next launch? We got now get ready for the next bridge, the next round. It's something that we're like, okay, let's do it different. We've been there. It's not a fun place for most people. We have the scars you can see and the ones you can't, right? So we believe that actual true advantage, especially in deep tech, comes from a new way of thinking about it. No, we can't turn that off. Sorry, I didn't anticipate the light right there. But just to show you another example of what we mean, right? You know, if you've been a founder or you've been around startups at the earliest of stages, it's all about chasing things in these short sprints and these short cycles, which often lead to things like burnout. You maybe had a great idea, but it wasn't on a long enough horizon of things to see it through. But we're like, okay, let's not do that then. Let's operate in this sweet spot where we like going fast too, and we get sprints. But let's think on a long horizon. Let's think about the long game, especially with deep tech, frontier tech, and let's do it different. Let's do it strategically. So what if we compare speed and the velocity with something like a system, the infrastructure, the scaffolding, so that founders that come into the fold in Barclo, you can sprint. Why? Because we're going to come and support you for, again, the long game of things. So again, the question's, what if venture building could bridge the gap between all that? Do you want to speak to? This is funny. We usually don't get to do this together.
I know, we
so
usually
we're like,
are separate.
Yeah, usually she's somewhere and I'm somewhere else, but we're
No, you
what we
guys.
call entangled, I guess.
There
if
we
you
go.
will.
Where that last slide becomes very important is because we're entering this convergence era where short-termism and point solutions are not going to cut it anymore. We are now in a time where across compute, security, the fact that we are innovating things that are tools, weapons, but could also be safeguards means that up, down, and across the stack, there's a lot that we need to rethink. And that's just a good way to think about the convergence era. One example I like to point out to folks is where this kind of investor lens gets in our way in understanding convergence, right? Not partially because you can't boil the ocean, not everything's in thesis, whatever. But how many of you guys remember 6 months ago when cooling and water resource technologies were called climate tech? Guys remember that? They're like, oh yeah, that's climate tech, right? And then people realized that they needed that for the data centers, for their AI workloads, and now it's infrastructure. Funny that, right? That's how this convergence era is going to continue to go. The investor framing of deep tech, space tech, climate tech, biotech, right? There is this overarching principle in the world and humanity right now called critical tech. And when you talk about critical tech, it's about the urgency and the criticality. And that in America is a little hard for us, right? Because we're kind of stuck on productivity tools and media and entertainment and healthcare dysfunctions, right? But the rest of the world is really moving into things around sovereign solutions. They're moving into things that are like, you know, why should I settle for zero trust when I could have an invisibility cloak and no one can see me at all? And when we're stuck on AI this and quantum that and, you know, chasing the next thing like in that last arc, because investors chase that as well, you miss all of the bankable opportunities to invest in imperatives and to really understand that mandates are going to be driving this market and what we see happening in a stack.
So, you know, what we're identifying there is really what we're calling, there's this gap, right? For operating on the edge, again, we talked about like the short-term kind of things, but a lot of stuff's happening, right? At the ground level, from labs to innovation, inventions. And then on the other side, right, what does real market adoption look like? We're talking about customers, real metrics of traction. And so for us, part of us operating in this sweet spot, knowing that there's this convergence era of things, we like to live right there. We are that bridge. We are that connective tissue. We're that nucleus. We want to be that hub that you can go to. That was the opportunity at hand when we looked at the landscape. It's the last mile, the commercialization of all this tech. And it needs to happen because we're seeing this convergence. And with that, we're talking like paradigm shifts. Not just, I think what most people, when they say that, it doesn't hold the weight. Like, I'm talking about entirely new markets, entirely new industries, economies. It's, if you're in the right rooms or you listen to what's not being said, you'll understand, you'll start to see this thread throughout anything I'm sure you're into in terms of listening out there. So, you know, again, moving into like the mapping and what have you, I like that I did that. I laughed because I forgot I did that because I used to be a gamer. So I was like, up, down, down, left, right. Yeah.
Former Xbox here. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I didn't tell him to take it out.
But oh, it's fine. I love it. Yeah. Everyone's doing it right now on their phone. See what it unlocks. That's a good idea. Mapping the frontier, right? So we're saying, yeah, that'll reveal what that stack is, right? But moving it across it, up, down, left, right, all around, that's that opportunity gap. And so those are the people that we say those are the frontier founders. The ones that aren't afraid to do that, to live there, to go, onto the edge and look over and go, all right, I'm still here, and I'm not gonna turn the other way around, right? I'll let you, since this was inspired from your whiteboard the other day, I'm just like translating a lot of the stuff that she puts out. She's my quantum computer, if you will, and I'm just like, all right, I'll make it look nice and fancy. But go ahead, Siera.
Yeah, so a good way to think about this slide that it'll build out all the cool stuff. But what I hear way too often, when people, hey Siera, I take nothing else away from like quantum, whatever you're saying. One thing I beg of people, stop calling it quantum computers. There are 4 known and applied domains of quantum technologies, and compute is just one of them. So if you are talking about quantum compute and you're not talking about the other technologies, I already know that you probably heard about this through hype and headlines and not through the names of faces who are kind of engineering things with these folks doing orbital data centers, right? People are talking about aquatic, terrestrial, and orbital solutions now. When you're in orbit, you're fully in the quantum realm. Black body radiation, you're off by a little, you're off by a lot, right? That's where those sensors become important. Satellites, quantum key distribution, right? Those have been up in space. Got to rethink how those are now being used in an adversarial way in space junk fields, right? Got to think about all this stuff. But let's talk about just quantum systems, right? Let's talk about compute. You hear a lot. I'm not sure that a quantum computer is going to viably, cheaply, et cetera, right? My question to those folks is which architecture, because there's over 18 validated ones. Trapped ion, that's IonQ. Topographical qubits, that's Majorana with Microsoft, right? There's superconductivity, there's hybrid compute, right? But that's just compute. Within compute, by the way, there's over a dozen and growing types of compute. There's biological compute, there's analog compute. This is where I sound like Bubba Gump, where I just go through all the computes. I'm gonna spare you that. But within those 18 architectures, you have 35 plus SDKs available now. IBM Qiskit, I believe, is up to 13 million downloads. I like to point to this because when I hear people talk about quantum compute, I hear them talk about this theoretical thing like there's not something they could go and download and play with themselves. They know a little Python, right? It is very important as we kind of become what I call future fluent and talk about this stack, that we're talking about these things not just in terms of the investor lens and readiness, but like how's this for readiness level? Go download one of the SDKs, right? It's IBM Fall, Qiskit, Season, whatever you want to do. But if you're gonna say it's not there or whatever, you have to say which of the 18 aren't there and which of the 35 you don't like, because it's definitely there, right? So that's the PSA on compute. You have sensing, communication, and simulation. Simulation is where folks are really excited right now because that is the most germane intersection and flywheel between AI and quantum. Because that is the part of quantum that actually is not the computer or the chip, it's algorithms. This is where you get into something like Sandbox AQ is doing around what's called not language models at all, because we all know, if you've ever been in a miscommunication with another person, you know language fails, right? We also know that language isn't intelligent. Your dog can know commands, your dog can learn language, it won't make them a human, right? They're working on large world computational models. Let's get out of the magic of AI and get into the math. Let's get into formulas. Those are not words, those are not language. So those are these sorts of things that can happen, but then you have this thing around compute, right? Your intelligence can't outrun your compute. Let's talk about the data centers. That was always true. Let's go back to the 90s and the .com thing, right? The apps and agents, the websites at the top, huge amount of speculation, kind of like right now, right? Because it's at the top of the stack here with the apps and agents in the front end that's supposed to deliver all the value, because that's where people can subscribe, that's where they can like, comment, buy your bundle, right? But just like during .com, what was always going to be the prerequisite for those numbers being right? Americans having computers and internet. So there was always a time, even back in the 90s, where you could just run the numbers real quick and be like, for you to hit what you're saying is going to happen on .com, there would need to be this much Wi-Fi, back then broadband, back then dial-up, right? This much connectivity and this many personal computers. And this is before, dude, you're getting the Dell, right? Where people didn't even know how they would afford personal computers. We might be in that moment a little bit again. But you know what also happened back then was people kept building for dial-up, they kept building for broadband. And we're seeing a similar thing happen where while everybody is stuck on apps and agents and AI, folks are building compute. Folks are building the actual thing that can power this stuff that we've kind of opened Pandora's box on.
So, getting into some of the kind of like, tangibility, what we're offering, we, again, had to think about this from our past lives, from the ecosystem, from the market, and just putting together something that, honestly, like, you don't see this. Like, we made this just given all those inputs and all those variables, and it's strategic in the sense that it's also adaptable. It's a little bit modular, whatever works for you, but because we understand the reality of being in frontier tech. By the time, it's just like a good example is like what they say about AI, and like a new version comes out for a model, right? It's like overnight, thousands of companies are gone, right? So we get that. It could change. And so that's built into this with that being considered, where it's allowed you to flex. It's gonna allow you to adopt, because we're gonna have that intelligence running all the time, and we're gonna build that into it in each phase. And so that's just something underlying this. But part of it too is we get this, let's start off on the right foot. Whatever it is you have an idea around, or maybe it's one that we have. Part of the value of a venture studio is our ideation and validating these concepts. So maybe it's something you come on as a founder to help build one of these out too. It can look like a lot of flavors, but it all starts with alignment. So we come in with market intelligence. We have incredible expertise from around the world that we're bringing to the region. And so through us, you get access to that, so you can trust that what we're mapping from day one is not, okay, and then that'll get you to a Series A and then a Series B. No, what we're mapping is, no, from day one, how can we get you revenue generating? How can we start building you as a company? We're in the business of building ventures, company. And so I think a lot of people right away in another venture program, even other studios, you start out kind of somewhere in the middle. And it's still a mess, but we start there, first and foremost. Let's get there. And then the rest just follow up on it. So this one is just kind of one example to walk through, but there's a ton of opportunities depending on where you, in that last, in this diagram, where you're playing. And sometimes it's not the whole piece. Like, maybe we're not gonna build another version of quantum compute, but maybe we are owning a piece of the supply chain of that. So why not? And just throwing it in here. But we will say at the end of the day, what we'd love to get you to is that, yeah, don't get us wrong. We love our venture friends. We have an incredible network. I think we'll touch on the qubits part, but if not, we'll throw that in at the end. But we want to get you ready for that to be the case, that when you come into the studio, you might start out here, but then at the end, you will be Series A ready. And we'll help you get there, and we'll make introductions. We have a lot of partnerships we've built out. We spent a lot of time this year building the ecosystem across the entire value chain. So we like to provide what we call green light pathways. And this could look like a lot of things too. I think most people are like, yeah, and then you stay there and you stay venture backed and that's your path. We're like, okay, that's one path. What if, since we from day one are helping you generate revenue, like working to build you as a company, maybe you don't need that. Maybe you're just crushing, you're scaling. You don't need that. You're generating revenue. You have profit. Maybe you don't need to give up any more equity. Maybe you get to keep that for yourself. Another one could look like, okay, we're working with, in a lot of deep discussions with a lot of enterprise companies, because they in of themselves don't always have enough resource leash in R&D innovation departments. So we're partnering with them, because we actually played this role in past lives for other people, from a Publicis to Accentures to enterprise. So we know they outsourced this. We were the people they were outsourcing to. And so we've built this in to where that's another pathway opportunity, is getting paid through enterprise pilots. And usually when you work with enterprise, it's not just a pilot, it's a series of them. You have an opportunity to kind of go from there. But that's, again, a way to start building revenue. And then I think the other one I'll say is like a fast track to being a design partner. So we have other people within our ecosystem. Eventually we'll have waves and a regular cadence of cohorts. And that's just gonna continue to be this flywheel effect. But that also means you have more opportunities to come in to, maybe it's an enterprise pilot, maybe it's just a bigger play where they're like, we're so focused on this. Oh, you're doing that, great, come be a part of it, right, as a design partner. And again, those can be paid opportunities. It's just, again, getting you real case studies, not use cases, case studies. So you can speak from a truth, and you look that much better, say you do want to get venture funded. You know what's gonna blow their minds when you show them the metrics of not hypothetical, not theory, reality, real metrics that matter, real traction like revenue, profit, EBITDA, all that stuff. There's more than this. We will send this after, but it's just to let you know, like, we're thinking about it all. We've been kind of in stealth, not like true stealth, but what we've been doing is really busy building up partnerships, deals, so that anyone that comes to be involved in our ecosystem that is Barclo, you get access to this and more. So we've got everything from like legal counsel, financial services. We have gateways to other ecosystems on a global scale too. But we're here, we live here, we're in Seattle, PNW is our home, and so we're putting our stake in the ground here. But just so you know, Barclo is also part of a strategic global effort where we are the studio platform layer. So there's a global fund of things. To be clear, we don't have a fund, we just have partnerships with these folks, and they operate on a global scale. We are building the playbook and the framework for them to replicate across the US and with sister studios in India. I think we'll look at Japan, potentially Switzerland. All these things are coming online, and those are just additive benefits that you won't see here, but we'll tell you since you showed up today. Do you want to speak a little bit to just the different ways?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked a little bit about co-development programs, equity stakes, and all of that. I want to touch a bit on diligence as a service and R&D and advisory because I formerly came from EY, and we're actually working with like a capstone team at Columbia from a program I graduated from. And we're kind of looking at this kind of effort called next-gen advisory, right? Gone are the days of $50,000 slide decks that then sell a lot of billable hours, right? That whole thing. But what replaces it instead? Well, there's a lot of conversation like, do we do product? Do we do execution? And if you've ever met a consulting advisory partner, you know they're practically allergic to those things, right? Like they need like an EpiPen if you suggest that they do something like beyond a deck, right? Like there's a whole tier of these folks who, it's gonna be a big talent and cultural problem. Not in a AI is gonna take our jobs kind of way, but in a can we adapt and survive this sort of like tectonic shift in where value lies if you're going to charge people all this money. Then there's this thing around diligence where we talked to somebody in the UK who's been doing like quantum tech recruiting for the last 5 or 6 years, admittedly a bit early. And I used to be a technical recruiter. He has the database, the tickler system. He's like, yeah, I don't really know like where these consulting firms and all these people are like, oh, we're going to do quantum, we're going to do this, we're going to do sensors. He goes, because my database shows there's, who wants to guess how many people in the whole wide world on the technical side? 10,000. Just for the record, EY's workforce is 430,000. And there's only 10,000 people in the database right now. And this is why Kiski, this is why IBM, this is like people are trying to get people upskilled, they're trying to get people cross-skilled on security, on cryptographic readiness, on agentic threats. This is why. This becomes our unfair advantage because our fund partner's colleague and friend won the Nobel a couple weeks ago for quantum tunneling on an electrical circuit that can standardize hardware so we can actually scale this stuff, right? So we talk to folks who do protein engineering, who come from Nobel laureate labs, people who are published, who literally wrote the book on this, they sit on our boards. We had a spin out come out of Caltech. This is that time where the most bankable opportunities are going to come from the hard sciences. And that's not your Stanford computer science engineers, right? There's these folks at this lab in Caltech and they're putting light on chips, photonics integrated nonlinear chips. They just had a stealth announcement, right? So in that world where there's only a handful of people in the whole wide world who can call BS, that's where diligence becomes this very important thing, because if you can't not only diligence it, a lot of people don't even know what are the success criteria of a pilot, right? From a test bed service, somebody sells you this thing, oh yeah, it's quantum resilient, quantum enabled. Okay, we have the people who can kick your tires on that.
Yeah, that's a good question I had from a gentleman back here. He asked that. I was like, yep, smart.
Yeah, so that's why like when we talk about when we talk about advisory, talk about these things, this talent becomes an unfair advantage. Why? Because speed used to rule the day, but now it's about preparation. You will have no speed. You're not even going to let you on the racetrack if you don't have these. Like the future has prerequisites, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And because the future has prerequisites, this isn't the kind of stuff that people could just up and do and tell you they can do it. Yeah. And folks are really having a hard time. We're learning dealing with that news.
You know, I'll steal your bar about, another way to look at, how are we doing diligence? And, again, there's only so many people that exist. And there's an even smaller number of people that can identify, like, okay.
Oh, yeah, on the business side.
Who's credible?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt for 2 seconds? I apologize. It is 11 o'clock. Anybody that had a hard stop, I just want to let you know.
But yeah, I think
Good
that's,
job
this
with
is, I think, the
Q&A.
last thing.
But if you need to leave, we totally understand. Please just, feel free to go. But we're going to continue because I think this is really interesting.
Cool, appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, some of the criteria, right, we look at is like who's credible then in a situation where we need to find someone, who is qualified, and then the last is, okay, but who's capable? Because even if they are credible and they're qualified, are they available? Do they even care to do anything?
Do
with
they
it?
speak English with us?
Exactly.
Right? Like, they.
And so, it's a really simple formula, but if you don't know what you're looking for and you don't know where to go even, then you're kind of just up a creek without a paddle. But that's what we're here to fulfill in another way. Do you want to speak to anything else? I didn't realize I had put some of these we spoke to earlier.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is, people always ask us the question, like what's in it for me? Like, what does that mean? Venture studios are really different. I think the thing that I'll close on is that, as you can probably imagine, if you're the type of person where like your bread and butter and ROI comes from like taking equity from people and not giving them introductions so they can make revenue from your network, right? We don't always get along with those folks. Not because like we don't want to collaborate or whatever, but because our goal in seeing this gap here in the US with critical technology, if the US, for better or worse, says we have to private sector our way out of these challenges, then it's not going to be enough for us to look to IPO and exits. We have to look to being a traction engine. People talk about accelerators, incubators. We think of ourselves as a traction engine. Why? Because there's a certain type of investor who doesn't care if you ever get traction. Because if you IPO, you get a buyout, you get whatever. Like, who cares about your traction? They actually don't care if you become a business or company. That you could start off a company and just end up a feature in somebody else's stack, and as long as they get paid, they're fine with that. But for us, that isn't enough, and that's really why we kind of see this more as a mission in terms of what we spin out of the studio. So.
Yep, cool. So we'll end with that. Obviously, please take note of this. Will get to both of us if you hit us up on the email. The site doesn't have too much now, but I'm actually, we have AI Week coming up in Seattle,
Ooh.
and so I'm launching the new site and all that. But please, get a hold of us. If you've got ideas or, we're talking to so many folks. It's like, I always have this like, funny enough, I just spoke to someone, and they were telling me they're in this quantum this and that. It's like, so now I have someone I can connect that person with, and we love that because there's only 10,000 of them around the world. And so, let us know. We'll take connections of any kind. If you want to learn more things, stay involved. We have Illuma. I didn't put it up here too, but we're always hosting events in and around Seattle and beyond. So stay tuned. We've got a lot of cool things coming online very, very soon.
Yes, thank you for joining our Curio today.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So part of the reason I asked you three to come up was a little bit of an audible, but I spent 23 years at Intel at Intel Capital, and some of these projects, some of the advanced projects then, and some of the Horizon stuff you guys are talking about is exactly what he was working with. So wanted to get his chime in on it as well. So amazing thing. First of all, apart from the nice to know theoretical, this is where things are going and how do we land the plane and how does it impact us, right? The company in the room. Is anybody dealing with any of these advanced technologies, or are they on their horizon? Ish. Yeah. And I think there's amazing parallels too, because I think one of the things I saw when I was looking through this was, as a founder, you have to be painting a future that doesn't exist, right? No matter what it is. This is just a larger horizon for what you're trying to do. But I think also there's been a criticism of science fiction, that there hasn't been enough science fiction because that's been our benchmark to build. The sliding doors in Star Trek, right? Communicators and stuff. This is, somebody goes, when they're 10, they go, I want to build that. And I think we're starting to see that now in some of this.
Very much.
So yeah, I would love to kind of find out some of the tech you're seeing and where this trend is heading. It's a big one.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite questions that contextualizes it is when people are like, you guys do a lot of stuff with space people.
It wasn't on our bingo card, to be fair, beginning this year.
In fact, we actually had like we started, we got to pivot, right? We started with this whole thing around like academic institutions and technology transfer, and then we found more going on in orbital solutions.
Yeah, in part too, if at least, I mean, it's outside of Seattle, but like Renton and other spots around Greater Seattle, if you will, or what, we're known for aerospace, right? Boeing, other things, and then there's also a niche, sliver of that's for space specifically. And we recently went to a space summit. It was actually just Space Week.
Yeah, it was
And
Space
then it
Week.
was a summit.
Yeah.
You would be surprised how many companies are developing for space systems, technologies, different ways to launch, all here in Washington. And so once we got wise to this earlier this year, we just kept chasing that curiosity and seeing a lot of alignment around some of the things you already alluded to. How do you, adversarial, like how to keep communications secure from extraterrestrial thing to another thing to terrestrial and all the different ways that you can communicate. How do you keep that secure? Post-quantum, quantum key distribution. These things are actively being applied, tested right now. And so like it blows our mind because launching orbital data centers is also like crazy. I don't know if you know, but the ISS, right, is ordered to be decommissioned by 2030, I believe. So we are friends with some of the folks that are building some of the next version of that, if you will.
Private station?
There's I think a few. It's more of a collaborative effort for sure this time around, but how cool is that, right? And then where we come into play, it's like we don't need to build the spaceship, but I bet you we'll run into founders and maybe someone in this room, it's a piece of what goes up to space that helps it do something.
Or even around launch and propulsion and materials and prototyping, right? I bring up space because if you think about your phone, right? Your phone is a product that has technology that's based on science. But you don't list out all of those things that are in your phone, right? And this is why I always caution people about this point solution thinking we get stuck in, right? Because when it comes to space, they're like, well, of course we're using microgravity physics to test things, right? That's quantum, right? Satellites and all these devices up there, that's edge. That's edge compute. But they wouldn't be like, oh, this is an edge computer and you should invest in edge, right? Like it's applied. And that's why we're really big on trying to help people with this idea of future fluency and operating in the specifics, because people are going to apply things that deliver value and solve problems. And when you go through it, it'll be all kinds of parts of that stack and more, right? But if you can't detect that's actually a product or solution that's applying these sciences, then that's kind of how you miss it.
So I have 100 questions, but I'm going to start with the capital side because I think that's the easiest place to start. So university funding's been declining.
Mm-hmm.
The government is where it is right now. We won't talk about that. Somebody said no politics, so we'll stay away from that third rail. Venture's been hard to come by the last few years. Where do you find the capital pools for this long tail investment? Because traditional ventures looking for that next tranche. They're looking for that next beachhead that they can prove the valuations that they apply to it. And what you're talking about is decades of perspective, not quarters of perspective.
Well, I have some great news on that front. First, we're so behind, it won't be decades for us in the US, like full stop. We're just really behind. That's partially why I tell people about Quantum 2025. The short answer to your question is that for better or worse, America is one out of 195 countries on planet Earth. And there's a whole bunch of those countries like Germany who just announced $70 billion in defense for space. They're taking this stuff very seriously, right? So I love what you said because that's really the challenge we have is in America, we think in things of investments in markets and the world is thinking of imperatives and mandates. But these are highly bankable imperatives and mandates, like what's going on in space right now. So that's the short answer is we're part of this global fund. We have the sister student in India who does not have any of these fund problems or challenges, right? But that's because like on the one hand, you could say there's more patient capital abroad. Like that's one way to look at it, right? But what I think that there's, any economics nerds in here? No, okay. This is where there's some really fun game theory, right? I can give you the generic answer, which is like, oh, like the math is the global, but let's get into game theory. We have had countries, right, approach our fund partner and all that, and they're just like, since you guys want to privatize the stuff that normally we would never even get to see out of NASA, we'd never get to see out of these health groups, never get to see out of your labs, what if we invest in that kind of private thing that we never have access to and maybe offset some of these tariffs? So that's one near-term game theory thing, right? Another game theory part of it is, wow, I noticed the US is really over-indexed on AI. Well, like I noticed like there's a whole bunch of people who are not ready for agentic security threats for the stuff that they're building. I noticed America, like, yeah, like,
Okay, so
it's like,
I'm famous for calling bullshit, so
yeah,
my question was, the source, so is it sovereign wealth funds?
there's a number of modalities, yeah. So there's family offices abroad.
Okay.
There's sovereign wealth funds abroad.
Okay.
There are national initiatives with our allies.
People that can afford to take a long
Yep.
view, that aren't trying to pay back their LPs
Yeah.
on some investment thesis.
You-
They sold
Yes.
to raise the fund.
You
Yes.
could imagine, like on the enterprise side, it's the global 100s that fall into the categories of critical technology or verticals. Sorry. So
Having
telcos,
spent
we're looking
a
at
quarter of a
this.
century
Yeah.
in the global 100,
So you know.
I can tell you how fickle they are too.
Yeah, but there's
Until
lots
they
of them.
realize.
Yeah, there's lots of them, and there are a lot of, like when you talk about sovereign wealth in these family offices, there's also the succession planning on what is the next tranche for the next
Right.
10 years for when I hand this to Sonny, right? There's also that too that people are talking
And-
about a lot.
And I will say, again, we're very much always in the ecosystem in a lot of ways, including the investor side. And so some of the things we're seeing firsthand right now happen is, I'll say we influence some of this for sure, but even just in Seattle, all the major VCs you would know, and some that you don't, you know what they're starting to spin up? Quantum specific departments and developing their thesis of things. And we're like, cool, like, yeah, because we're gonna need that, right? And so we're not mad at that at all. We're like, that's great. But just so you know, like this stuff's coming online. You're gonna see a lot of this. 2026, I believe, is gonna be insane on a global scale, but also our hope and dream is, and we're doing our part, is that the US then starts to catch up. And then one last thing I'll say is Washington still hasn't put together on a state level anything around quantum initiatives. Other states have.
Not, or 10 now. California just signed theirs
California is
last
the
week.
newest one.
Yep.
But we're talking about, oh my gosh, like Florida, Texas,
New York,
Montana.
Tennessee,
And so
New Mexico.
is that not a surprise? Like,
They're
that's
in
a
Korea
surprise?
right now
Yeah.
with the photonics hub. They're in Korea right now doing the thing we're talking about.
But eventually, I think obviously Washington will come around. We're actually helping to support a policy summit coming up in November that is actually focused purely on quantum policy and pushing that forward for the state of Washington. So, you know, just to give you some signals of what's happening out there.
That surprises me since we're Boeing.
I guess for more context, yeah. I mean, there's so many reasons. We're home of cloud. We have
Boeing.
NVIDIA. We have one of the big quantum computing companies, their production manufacturing facility, and they actually just released news they're going to expand. IonQ, publicly traded. They're the 800-pound gorilla in quantum computing right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're expanding that facility. It's in Bothell. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like these things are happening. I just don't think enough people, you know, pick up on it.
Yeah, you mentioned it, a flywheel. Just talking about your stack, right? The idea that, you know, we talk about the buzzwords of quantum and security and cybersecurity and you know, well, is it going to crack Bitcoin and right, all this other kind of stuff. You mentioned that really rethinking your stack, starting to look at it now because it is more than viable in the short term.
Yeah, have you guys seen The Imitation Game? Benedict Cumberbatch, the story of how a bunch of players broke Enigma, right? So if you haven't seen it, TLDR, there was a super secret group in the English countryside trying to break the German Nazi cryptography called Enigma. Enigma was nasty work because it reset at midnight. And everybody was by hand trying to decrypt this thing. And Alan Turing, computers, the Turing test, built this machine to run all the numbers so that it would lock in, and then that's how they would know. And the thing about something like this sort of cryptography threat we're talking about, they call it like Q-Day or Q2K, is this is where quantum, going back to imperatives and mandates, whether you want to do quantum sensors or you need a quantum sensor or you need quantum key distribution, maybe you don't need it as a tool, but somebody somewhere is using this as a weapon, right? That's why, like, you know, when you talk to PNDC or you talk to DARPA or whatever, if you look at what they're funding and what they're backing, this isn't like they saw like a Silicon Valley pitch and we're like, that looks good. Like, that's not, you know, they're not the, you know, like you said, these are very fickle types. They're not the type to do that. JP Morgan has been driving readiness on this internally for like 6 years. We know one of the VPs there who she comes and speaks at our events. So that's why when we talk about like Investor time horizon to get your money back is one thing. The horizon to have readiness to protect the people you know and love in this country is a different time horizon. And it's a different level of criticality. And so if you're looking at that through that productivity tool SaaS lens, that's going to be how folks probably miss it.
So there seems to be a general change in sentiment in the tech industry with defense tech, right? If I think 10 years ago, it was verboten. You'd have employee revolts if they found out the mega corporation was doing anything. Then Palmer Luckey went and formed Anduril. He was an anathema. And then Anthropic went, wait, no, there's good money there. And now Anthropic owns like every consulting.
Yeah, look at
agreement the
Palantir.
government
They're
runs.
like,
they're doing push-ups.
Are you guys seeing that as well in terms of founders and people just thinking more in terms of this protecting our society and our democracy versus, oh, I would never want to work for, you know?
Yeah, we are seeing that because part of it is because, like you said, who's the money coming from, right? Like who has those deep pockets in that timeline and that sense of imperative. But what you also see is just like this realization of, once again, tools, weapons, and safeguards, right? Regardless of like how you feel, like I'll give you another big thing happening right now is around open source and sovereign solutions. The other reason you're seeing a lot of new openness in the US, it's not just on like the check writing, non-diluted cap side. It's also this thing where if you are Denmark, this actually happened recently with like 365 in Denmark, Copilot's a bit of a black box. And they're like, hey, tell me what Copilot's taking from SharePoint. Tell me what it's taking from this. And Microsoft comes out and says, well, we offer sovereign compute, and we offer this, and this, and confidential computing. And they're like, no, we know you can technically offer it. What we're asking is, are you going to roll over and hand it over to a certain somebody if they shake you down? And I guess my shorthand for that is you can't sass your way to sovereignty. So there is kind of like this worldwide thing where people are like, I'm okay with some redundancy. I'm okay with longer time horizon, but I need to have a sovereign stack. I can't settle for zero trust anymore with AI.
Yeah. Questions out here?
Yeah.
I got one. Hi, I'm Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Very cool stuff. So I'm trying to wrap my head, but I think of ventures, the way I understood what you guys are offering, it's more like a pipeline from idea to first customers.
Yeah, we're a venture studio. Yeah, so when you're a venture studio, that's exactly right. You are investor, operator, and founder all in one. So a way to think of us, another way somebody said, it's like we're kind of like a op-heavy private equity, right? Because like 30 to 40% of what we got from like the money is going to go to like actually getting like the patents, the IP, the revenue. Like, so that's another way to think about it. But yeah, like that is one of the ways that we operate.
So in that context, the question that I have is, I'm obsessed with the challenge of, you got the idea for a startup. How do you know if it's an opportunity worth pursuing? So you guys have all these different.
Go try to raise money.
I mean, you're the investor. How are investors like? Even if you got money, like what is that? It's not like once you get the investment, therefore it's a home run. Yeah. So I'm really curious, and I'm coming at this much more from the perspective of the founders. Like it crushes me how many founders I've worked with that spend a year of their life and a couple thousand of their dollars just to decide that it was a crappy opportunity. And you guys are taking money from investors, like you're saying, sovereign wealth funds, family, and all this. So my question to you is like, how do you, as you have these ideas that percolate, ultimately you're going to need a filter. You can't fund everything indefinitely.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, what's your process for not necessarily picking winners, but eliminating losers? Like, how do you decide where to stop investing?
I had a similar question, like what kind of KPIs do you guys implement to track progress?
I love the second step up on the phase of.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
I mean, first, great question, for sure. And so part of it, again, we had to take some of the tenets of what most people would understand as diligence and identifying these opportunities in the market. And then we also had to come up with like a whole nother set of metrics and other things beyond just like metrics, right? So like one example is a lens we'll look at is like you come to us with something, say it's in cybersecurity, because that's very topic du jour right now in our world. It's like, what's your TAM, SAM? It's like these imperatives, these mandates.
It's the law.
By 2030, you bet your ass you better have this locked in. Right now, the recommendation from the UK, who has set an initiative, for example, is to start pilots this year to be ready for post-quantum cryptography and then start looking into quantum key distribution, which is like another thing to have that works well with PQC. And so that's just one example, right? We're looking at that. We understand on a global level of things. The US in that way tends to follow a lot of stuff that the UK puts out, for instance, right? In these standards and initiatives. And so soon enough, like, I mean, we're pretty good at figuring this out really quick in terms of connecting the dots of what could be here. They, for instance, same topic, everything, just to keep the thread, is in the UK, they've now, through, what's it called, the National Security Cyber Center, something like, anyway, the people that set these standards, right, initiatives in that way, they've now entered into where they are the ones to say and give the blessing of like, yeah, these people are qualified. There's a short list, but you have to go through the government of things. And that makes a lot of sense. And so we're coming up on that soon because as a nation, we haven't put initiative together, but you know, again, DARPA, all this, we were just on their call. They're doing a Connect soon in December in Seattle. QBI, quantum benchmarking initiatives, they're starting it already. We've seen this pattern happen time and time again across a bunch of the major nations. So again, we're looking at those things as signs. So when you come to us, we go, yeah, and guess what? The investors in our ecosystem, they get this. We don't have to educate them on it. They're just gonna be like, what do you have? And we'll show them, and we have. And that's why, again, strategically, we didn't have it on here, but Qubits Ventures is like such a strategic partner. They have this reputation. Nardo, for instance, is like 1 of 100 in the world. And so, anyways, we put them through that.
So put a different way, the markets are already established. The beachhead is already defined. You're just out picking winners. So it's going to be there, and you know somebody's going to win that competition. You just need to pick the winners who are going to be the best of the solutions, or at least among the best.
I mean, yes, and then there's also, so we know, like for instance, like Qubits, they have a thesis. So not everything we identify, even though we know if it's us, and we still might pursue it, we just might not have a fund for, investment from Qubits, but we've got others. And so in that case, it's like, okay, we can see. But that's part of our criteria in some sense too. For some of them, we're like, ooh, let's prioritize those 3 of the 5 right now, because we know right away we can get funding, we can get traction, we can get resources, special strategic advisors, all this stuff, put talent around them. That's what we do, is orchestration, if you will, for that.
I was just going to say, startup period is kind of dark arts, right? And when you interject, you know, technology that's still being formed and built, you have a different possibility that's interjected inside of it, right? So I think the connections and people that you're doing that can validate, like you said, you know, that understand the difference between different type of quantum computing or whatever it is, the different component, that expertise layer is starting to remove one piece of that ambiguity. You still have all the commercialization, you still have all the other kind of market factors, but I think you're focusing the lens a little bit more through stuff like that, as well. I understood it.
And there's really, the thesis has some guardrails. I'll also give you some shorthand, which is great for, I think, all founders to think about. Don't be a solution looking for a problem. I can tell you that is the biggest one. When people talk, we were talking earlier about that's the one, that's the killer, right? Is we were talking about the whole idea of like case study versus a use case, right? Why? Because a use case abstracts away this thing called the user. Right? So when people talk in use cases, they're like, well, theoretically, somebody somewhere someday might want to do this with this thing I want to make. And it's like, well, back up. If you started with a user,
it's a recipe for
tossing
money into the ground.
Exactly. So I think that's what is like not doing that. I think another one is, and this is like another just general, is like knowing, to your point about the bullshit detecting, right? Knowing you're going to have investors and everything who have a bullshit detector, and you're better off just saying like you don't know or you need help. We have a founder who's coming through on the stealth side. He's doing protein engineering and biological compute, and he's talking to DARPA and all this cool stuff, right? He's like, we're like, what do you need? He goes, can you find me an optogeneticist? Because I came from this Nobel laureate lab and I'm published and I want to do all this, but I'm not that. And we're just like, yep, noted, right? Like, so that's the, you can be like an expert, you can be really deep in all of that, but like knowing like what you don't know. I think another thing too is like how to at least not pick a loser. Our big thing is we have to be very good in our world of distinguishing what's a science project that could even get a grant, right? You can get false signal from non-diluted cap. that doesn't translate to industry and market. So we have to make sure we're not working on a science project and trying to make it a company.
You guys were talking about prototypes and proof of concepts, and you can get trapped into those advanced
Yeah, that
research
could,
teams
you could.
and never get spun out into production
Yeah.
because the people that run those advanced research groups get paid
To
run
keep
their
researching,
group.
that's right.
And
That's
they'll
the-
keep writing
You
another
hit it on the
project.
head. One of the jokes we'll have, it's like, you know what a researcher is going to do if you give them more funding? More research.
That's what you
And you know
do.
what they're going for too? Their goal is to what? To get published, to win a Nobel, which, hey, great.
Right.
Awesome.
But that doesn't mean if it falls short of that, that there wasn't something there. And
right.
so we come in with this, unique perspective to identify
I think
that.
that's where identifying the problem. Right?
Yeah.
Last question, and then how broadly, I love the fact that you were taking quantum as a system. How far across disciplines are you guys extending? Are you looking at energy solutions like microfusion? Are you looking at advanced manufacturing? You mentioned
Yes.
photonics,
Yes.
which is clearly a backbone for this kind of technology. So
Yes, we have to, going back to like this whole, like the private sector is being asked to compete with China's 100-year plan.
Yeah.
We're in a position where from a thesis perspective, we can't not, because even if that is like globally competitively built, it's not like Microsoft 365 where you can just go get it from wherever. It's like DARPA and all these folks are like, is that from the US? Is that from a friendly? Is that from an ally? Is that interoperable? Right? Like, and so that's another reason why we kind of, we are looking at it and we want to look at it, because that's the kind of stuff that has this kind of compound innovation effect. Like, for example, we have this quantum VPN company in the Port Coast based in Seattle, American Binary. They're partnered with Oracle. They're in their first Oracle defense tech ecosystem, right? They are an amazing forcing function to that question, right? Because it's like, if you can't even handle the quantum VPN, kick the tires, cryptographic, blah, 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 that they're gonna put you through, then okay, we already know we have a lot of work to do. And if you can't even have a conversation with those guys in the Portco, you're probably not gonna make it.
Guys, I wanted to be really careful of time. Again, always conscious of that. It's 11:30 is the
it's a
right.
real
so-
stop.
The real
Real
stop.
stop.
Everyone's like,
But Siera, Johnny, really.
oh
thank
no,
you.
this
Thank
was
you
so
so
fun.
much.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys.
Johnny,
You guys are doing awesome
And thank you,
things here,
everybody.
man. Thank you so much. I'm glad we made this happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have the room, so.